A friend gave me these two original Coca Cola radios. Her brother-in-law was a big collector. He passed away. He had a basement full of Coca Cola. They sold it for tens of thousands of dollars, but none of the collectors that bought were interested in these two radios, and I'll show you why. This one's the nicest of the two, but you can see part of the speaker grill is busted out of it. Cabinet on it is nice. It's well, here's the dial, and it's broken into two pieces, so that's bad. I think the knobs are original, even though this one over here has a different style knob on it. I think both are original. And this one, the cabinets is not as in good a shape as far as the color. It's faded. The sun has faded the top of it completely. But this one is really damaged. Big chunk out of the corner, and they whoever had it actually had taped it inside, trying to keep it together. Look at the power cord. In fact, all of these power cords are, I don't think I should try to plug these in. They're all dry rotted. But anyway, this is the kind of radio I love. Other people go to radio flea markets and they're looking for the perfect cabinets and etc., etc. I love to bring something like this back to life, and so that's what we're going to try to do. Both of them have the original backs on them, and so there's a lot to good be said. The decals for the front are very available. I'm hoping that there is a dial available for this. I haven't looked yet, but I've got a feeling that the dial plate is probably available. And so we're gonna see what we can do with them. And this one here, what I will do on this one, I will use this one. I'll make a rubber mold to mold that shape of those little fins, and I will see if I can't replace the fins on this one over here. And I can fix this cracked and broken cabinet, so from the outside you'll never know it. Anybody that's fooled with these knows how to do that. So we're gonna give them a try. I think they'll make two nice radios. They'll never bring top dollar, but I'm not going to sell them anyway, so I'll keep you posted as I go along. Okay, since I need this one, this is the worst one of the two, so I'm going to start with it, since I need to use it to make a mold for those fins for the other radio. And here's the bottom label, model 4501A. Oh, that's a chassis, 4501A. Model number 5A410A. Got a good label on the bottom. Try to keep that intact. The grill cloth is glued to the case, but it's peeling off pretty easily. I've got to get that grill cloth off in order to make the mold I need to make. I don't think it's usable anyway. I'll have to come up with a different grill cloth afterwards. Another look at the chassis. filthy. I'll take this and bead blast it. I always tape up the tube sockets. I don't like to bead blast the tuning capacitor. A lot of things I won't bead blast that I see other people doing, but anyway, we'll get this cleaned up. So I've got to put something on the back side of this. When I put that rubber mold compound, I don't want it to squash through this side. So I got some 1/8 inch plexiglass, kind of flexible. It'll form itself to the shape of that. On the back side, got another piece on the front and with a clamp on it, and hopefully that'll work. Well, I did the hand cleaner trick on this chassis, and I think that's all I'm going to do. This chassis looks just fine for a what, 60, 70, maybe 80-year-old radio. The only thing I could work on is there are a few little rust spots, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to work recapping it. Well, we got it all recapped. Had to replace, I think, 3 resistors. I've replaced all the caps. And I had to replace this output transformer. This is a kind of a strange circuit, at least for me. To some of the old timers, I'm sure it makes sense. But this transformer has a tapped primary. Let me see if I can show you on the schematic diagram here. You'll see that little tap on the output comes down, goes directly to B+. The other side of the transformer goes through a 1200 ohm resistor and back to what I call the floating ground. Strange circuit for me, as I said, but anyway, one of those windings was open, so I found me it's actually a little line transformer that they put on speakers on like a 70-volt line in PA systems, but the total resistance was about right, and then I used the lowest tap, and it seems to work pretty good. So I'll give you a little idea here of how it plays.
Yeah, take one for the conservatives. You know, the socialists finally got a pretty strong relief over there.
Strokes a 3. Can't knock it down. Off the rim. Falling down to get the rebound is Hammonds. Sends off to Wheeler.
It's free trick in the book. It's exactly the opposite. We give a
Merry Christmas. Smile like you just don't care, because you don't. RightDentalCenter.com.
Lance McAllister for Papa John's. Papa John's has a new limited-time only pizza on the menu. Try their new garlic parmesan crust. Papa John's is offering a one-topping garlic parmesan crust for only $10 through December 29th. They're fresh, never frozen, original dough.
Special Christmas song for you here. Fighting for cleaner water.
Shall we find you yourself were fire until not long ago. listeners a risk-free, no-obligation analysis.
Okay, actually pretty hot little radio. I am using an external antenna. As I've explained in some of my other videos, I'm in a very rural area. Don't have any strong AM stations close by. The loop just doesn't do it. This little radio has an external antenna hookup on it, and that's what I'm using. I've got a long wire out in the backyard. So, but it picks up great, and so we're going to start working on the cabinet here shortly. I'm starting to work on this cabinet. You'll remember that it had a big chunk out of it. The corner here also is totally missing. I don't even have that little piece that goes in the corner. So what I've done so far, first thing I did was I took it and put it in my sandblaster, and I actually used a sandblaster and not the bead blaster. And I sandblasted these two edges where they're going to go together. These edges here. Sandblasted those because somebody had tried to glue them in the past and the glue was still on them, and I'm going to use JB Weld. I want to make sure the JB Weld had a good surface to adhere to, so I sandblasted those surfaces. I also sandblasted inside here on this corner where I'm going to actually want to put some fiberglass in there and then body put it on the outside to shape it. So that's what I've gotten done so far, and I am waiting on some more of the molding compound, because I have to create a mold from this from these fins, because the other radio that I'm going to work on is missing a lot of these, and so I've got to use these to make a mold to create some more that I can glue on the other one. So waiting on my molding compound to come in, and that's what I've done so far on this. I epoxied that large piece of Bakelite on the side, and it's set overnight. I like for these things to set about 48 hours before I do any extensive work on it, because I find that the JB Weld, they say it'll dry fast, but I've worked on it in 24 hours and it was still soft. So I'll let this dry a little longer, and my next step will be to go inside and fiberglass on this inside edge to do two things: to reinforce that joint, and also to provide a base for that corner where I can put some body putty in it and carve it and sand it to shape. So that'll be the next step. While I was waiting, I also put the knobs in the ultrasonic cleaner. They were caked with just years of use, and so I'm going to paint those, clean them up and paint them when I paint the other items. So next step is fiberglassing. The fiberglassing is done. You can see here on this corner the fiberglass on the back side. That'll hold the body putty that I'm going to fill in that big hole with. Look on the inside, you can see how I went all the way across there. That'll help enforce that joint of that piece that was broken off. And this is real tough stuff. I mean, that's hard, rock hard, and should last a long time. And you can see the joint here where I put this piece on with JB Well. So I'm going to start the buddy putty in this place, and after that's hardened, we got a lot of sanding and shaping to do. But I'm pleased so far. It looks real good and looks real sturdy. Well, this is the first coat of buddy putty, and I've got to put another skim coat on it. I got a few low places and a few places down here on the bottom's got to be filled in, and on the front. So progress, and I am extremely pleased with the way it's looking. I think this thing's going to turn out that unless you look inside, you never know what damage and repair has been done. You will recall that I need to use this radio, to make a mold to repair the speaker grill on the other radio. So I have this two-part item here. It's like clay, or like modeling clay, two different colors, and of course it's an epoxy product, rubber, so that you can knead them together and they will set up into a rubber mold. So I'm going to use about 3/4 of each of these. I hope that'll be enough, because I got another little small thing I've got to mold, and so I'm going to save some of that. So let's get it all kneaded together. The idea here is to get all the color mixed so that there's no streaks in it. It's not totally mixed, it won't harden. And you don't have a lot of time. They say you only got about 3 minutes to get this done. So I'm rushing, and I can feel it working. It's starting to heat up in my hand, so it's doing its thing. That looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to now press this on here. May not be able to get a good picture of this. Be able to get all the way out to the outer edge of this. Really probably could have used the whole amount. I say I can feel the heat. On this clay. Now I've got another little problem I'll show you. Just pressed in real good. Probably need this up here more on this end. Kind of thin up here. thinner than I would like. Probably, like I said, should have used the whole amount. Okay, we're gonna try to go with that. Really would like to have this on the back kind of flat so I can, when I lay it down on something to pour the epoxy in it, it'll be flat on the back side. I can feel it starting to get hard, so that's good, because now I'll show you the problem we've got. It squishes in on the inside, and that won't do for a mold, so I'm going to take a putty knife. See a little place over here, didn't fill in good. Take care of that. That should make a real nice mold. This is the mold that I've got made from that radio, and I'll use it now to make fins for the radio that has all the fins broken out of it, or at least half of the fins broken out. Next step is to spray some of this mold release on it. That'll keep it from sticking, and you can pull the object out of the mold and it won't stick to the rubber. Bought this from Hobby Lobby. Pretty expensive, $12 for a little bottle. I also bought my casting material there. It's a product called Easy Cast, also very expensive, but I should have enough in there to do several projects. They're pretty good sized bottles. You mix 2 parts, mix equal amounts, and then pour it in your mold, and it will do a good job, I hope. I've used other products. It's a little expensive at Hobby Lobby, but it's convenient, so that's what I did. So the next step is going to be to mix it up and pour it. I'm waiting for this mold release to dry. It has to dry completely, so I'll probably wait an hour or 2 on that before I mix up my epoxy and pour it. Alright, I'm going to pour. I've already started pouring. I thought I would turn the camera on before I finished. And so I'm pouring this epoxy solution in the mold. Okay. Always make a mess. Now what I hope to do is catch this. It's just starting to set up and scrape the excess off, so I won't have to deal with so much grinding and shaping at the end. I'm going to smooth it out a little right now. Make sure it's filling good. I just opened up Coke radio number 2. That's this one here on the right. And I noticed immediately some design changes. I thought all these radios were built in the same year, but and they may have been, but they definitely made some changes along the way. This is the first radio we worked on. You'll notice it's got the audio output transformer underneath the chassis. This one, the audio output transformer, is mounted on top of the speaker on the other side. I'll show you that in a second. The other thing you'll notice, this one has one of those Central Lab very early integrated circuits, replacing some of the individual components. This one does not have that. Also, this one has the more modern IF transformers. I'll turn it over and show you the difference in those on the other side. This Coke radio number 1, notice the older style large. This is this is radio number 1. Notice the older style large format IF transformers. Also notice no output transformer mounted on top of the speaker. It's underneath the chassis on this radio as compared to this one, but it still uses that tapped primary, but they did mount it on top of the speaker. And then here are the more up-to-date IF transformers. So several changes as manufacturing went along. This one, number 2, has had the potentiometer and the switch replaced. Also, this speaker is a different speaker. It almost looks like maybe that has been replaced. The way it's mounted doesn't seem as clean as on this one. So also this one doesn't have the cardboard surrounding or in front of the speaker like this one has. So is that just a design change, or did somebody replace that speaker? Do not know. Alright, so we're going to start recapping this one. See if we can get it playing. I have this Coke radio number 2. This is the one that has part of the speaker grill busted out, and here are the pieces that I molded using the other one to create a mold, and I molded replacement pieces that I'll be getting back in here, or at least trying to. We'll see how well it works out. I'm going to sand this radio. I've already sanded radio number 2, or number 1. I've already I've already sanded radio number 1. Wet sanded it with number 220. See if I can get a shot of that. And remember, this one, the bottom was busted off of it, and also the corner was completely missing, so I'm kind of proud of how that's turning out. And it's ready to prime and paint. So I hope to get that done. I'm going to sand this Coke radio number 2 first, because when I start putting those little fins in, that it's going to be a lot of moving around, and they're kind of delicate. I don't want to have to be handling this case a lot after I get those fins back in. So let's get busy recapping, and I'll fill you in a little later. I'm wet sanding this radio. I'm using, normally I would do these Bakelite radios with my regular automotive type spray gun and use automotive paint, but this time I'm trying to simplify my life, so I bought some Krylon primer, Krylon color, and this is cherry red, gloss cherry red. And I sprayed some on that other cabinet that hasn't been stripped yet, and when it dries you can't tell it from the original color, so I think it's a good choice for these Coca Cola radios. And I even bought the clear to match. I bought all Krylon, hoping that they will all interact with each other. I use Rust-Oleum on metal things sometimes that may have some surface rust, but I've had trouble with Rust-Oleum lifting. If you spray a second coat, it would lift the first coat, and so I'm going to try some Krylon on this. One thing about all of these spray can primers, I don't know what it is, but I've never used one that doesn't gum up the sandpaper. They don't sand like automotive primer where it sands dusty. You can see this piece of sandpaper here, which hadn't been used very much, and that's dry. So the only way I've been found to be able to sand these spray can primers is to wet sand them. So I'm sanding this with number 400. I like to use primer on something like this because it does fill some of the nicks and scratches, and so that's what we're doing here now. And won't be long, we'll spray a color coat on it, let it dry, spray a color coat, and we're going to see what it looks like. The decals are in for this Coca Cola radio number 1, but before I put the decals on and then spray the clear coat on it, I need to paint this feature here that was a bottle cap remover on a real drink case. So I've taped it up, and I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and cut around the edge there and expose that section that needs to be painted silver, and tape it up and paint that. I have painted the letters on Coca Cola. You can't get decals for that, and I find that to be the toughest job of all. I'm not really pleased with the job I did, but the best I could do. I've read all kind of techniques for doing this, and I've tried most of them, and none of them seem to be perfect. You just can't get it as good as the factory did. So let me get this painted. I've also painted there's two little handles that go on top, and they're painted silver, so I'll get that done, and we'll come back. I've started to work on cabinet number 2, Coca Cola radio number 2. This cabinet was in terrible shape. Besides the ribs being broken off of the speaker grill, it's just covered with nicks and scratches and dings, and you can see all the places on here that I've had to feather out. I've sanded the entire cabinet, feathered out everything I could feather out, and I wanted to get all that done before I replace these ribs, because that's going to be those ribs are going to be delicate, and once I get them in, I don't want to be handling it a lot. You poke your finger in the wrong place and you'll break them out, so I wanted to get as much sanding done on this cabinet as I could. Something else I think I'm going to do on this one that I didn't do on the other one, instead of using the rattle can primers, which I have not found one yet that sanded well. All the rattle can primers seem to gum up. I've got epoxy high build primer that I use on cars, and I'm gonna try that on this radio, because of all the nicks and places I've feathered out, it's going to need a little bit of building to try to cover some of that up. So next step on this one is to start replacing the ribs, working those. That's going to be a long drawn out procedure, because I think I'll probably have to do one rib at a time, let it set for at least 24 hours so it's dry completely before I try doing the one next to it, because I think trying to do them all at once, or even 2 or 3 at once, is going to be impossible. The epoxy primer, that epoxy just doesn't dry that fast, and they tend to lean over, and you constantly got to be working with them to keep them in shape until the epoxy sets up enough to hold them. So next step on this one, replace the ribs. Time to get started on replacing these ribs. So I've already cut one of the ribs off of this ribs that I made using a mold from the other radio, and so now it's just a matter of massaging these and grinding and shaping and getting them fitted into where they go. And so I'll use my Dremel tool to grind some places in here, grind it down so that the rib fits. Have to grind this side at an angle so that the other piece will sit down on it. I'll have to grind the replacement rib. Basically just going to be a long, hard process to get these ribs fitted in one at a time, and then they'll need to set for about 24 hours before I can do the next rib. So I'm going to try to get this first one done, and we'll return later. After quite a bit of sanding and shaping and working, I now think I have this rib so it's going to fit nicely. So I'll mix me up some JB Weld, and we'll go from there. Well, I finished replacing those fins. in the speak over the speaker, and I am extremely pleased. You can't even tell unless I told you that they've been replaced. I'm never thought they would turn out as well as they did. So I've got primer on it now, and next step is to put some color on it. I'll wait a few days, let this primer dry real well, and I'll wet sand it with some 400 and put some color on it. Okay, I'm working on Coca Cola Radio number 2. On number 1, I wasn't real pleased with the painting I did on those raised letters there that say drink Coca Cola. I have a friend that restores and collects license plates, and I asked him what he did, and this is his technique. Take a little piece of t-shirt material, put it on your finger, rope some tape around it, and then this is my I don't want to get any paint on the dripping of paint, but this is the brush that I was using. I use it to stir my paint with, so I'll put a little on the tip of that and dab it on there. Just have to make sure you do it, just lightly touch it. You can see right here where I've actually touched the other part. If I get it while it's wet, it'll come right off. This modeler's paint is dries very fast, so you have to get it quick. If you don't get it quick, I use automotive pre-wash. It's a solution that you put on a car, wipe the car off before you paint it, and I use that because it doesn't attack paint as bad as some kind of thinner would. So when I do get it on there and it does dry, if I get to it pretty quick, all I have to do is rub a little of that on it and it takes care of it. So that's my technique, and that one I've let dry, so I'm going to have to put a little pre-wash on it before I go too far here. But just lightly dab it on there, and that's the way we do it. It works. It looks a lot better than what I was doing before. Both Coca Cola radios are all finished, and they're beautiful, if I do say so myself. Turned out great. I was going to show you operating, but I live in a very rural area with no strong AM stations, and it's early in the morning here. If it was at night, I could probably show you picking up a few stations, but not now. But anyway, they work great, and they look great, and I am proud of them.